Frame of Mind is a puzzle platforming game developed by Sampletech Studios and was released on January 19, 2021. This game at first observation immediately reminds me of the likes of Antichamber, Manifold Garden, and Superliminal, although this is its own charming experience. The in-game world is bifurcated, at least from a mechanical standpoint. Artistically, it's one world that begs to be solved. It's almost as if you're playing in a shadow or negative universe that is fully synchronized with its opposite counterpart. Frame of Mind can roughly take between 25 and 45 minutes to complete. The levels aren't very difficult to the seasoned puzzle game player, but if you're rather new to this, you might find some confusions with the movement and how to execute solutions. The mechanics involve switching the direction of gravity, changing your own visual perspectives, switch panels, and the subtle manipulation of non-Euclidean space. These mechanics take place in an environment of subtlety. These are the underlying meanings from the in-game objects that do not directly relate to the puzzles, but have their own stylistic purposes. For example, there are common objects littered throughout this world, common as in they appear frequently, and common as in they can be classified as everyday objects. From that sentiment, we can then dig deeper and surmise that we are in an obscure version of the quotidian, the everyday. So the game is showing us a representation of the quotidian, maybe even the mundane aspects of it. And it's tied to the things we spend most of the time around, especially during the pandemic. So these things are also timely in their usage within the art. Microwaves, clothing irons, furniture, beer bottles, things that are perpetually familiar to us. These items are strewn about this environment and sometimes are personified to an odd and passive degree. For example, we see clothing irons shown the way footprints would be shown. So it's an odd mixture of material and human, mixing two different kinds of matter, but just by an expressive representation. This is even done more overtly when we see the comical face made out of cabinets and videocassettes. So it seems that the abstract faculties of being human, the identity of what makes us human, is stripped away and replaced with either active or passive ideas of what humans might have or already turned into. We've turned into a race that values the usage of technology rather than the importance of the things we do best, like love, which is why I think this game isn't trying to lecture us either. Like I said before, it's showing us two sides, and in multiple ways, and this is no exception. It's a very crafty back and forth using these images and always coming back to the human at the end. For example, one of the levels might use various distractions using those quotidian elements I mentioned before. They may even have direct reference to the blending of the material and the human, but at the end of it all, it is solely the action of us, the player, the human, that solves the puzzle and becomes closer to their environment. So even though we are being shown the errors of worshipping materials, the game is also showing us that we still manage to pepper in those human traits, although we have already lost our ways. There are other elements in here which to me signify at least in part that the developer might be conscientious about these themes, especially those related to humanity, their place in life, and how they affect other environments. For example, a small desk fan trying to cool down what looks to me like a melting piece of coral. For those who aren't aware, the Earth has been undergoing a devastating coral bleaching for quite some time now, leading to the destruction of many marine life habitats. So the image of a haphazard piece of technology trying to cool this piece of coral is one of the best uses of irony I've ever seen in video games, and it fits the rather obscure in-game world. And then this idea of the coral and the oceans they live in became rectified when we are thrust into a toilet and reawakened in the ocean, where everything around you is cast in a sensorial trance. The image there is so painfully obvious to me, that the refuse of human society ends up in the ocean, which by this game's imagistic rules means we do as well, because we are what we consume and use. We are now underwater, where we are forced to navigate an even stranger environment, yet that is housed right on our planet. The usage of water, at least in literature, is synonymous with rebirth, cleansing, or spiritual healing. Here it seems like it's used to rejuvenate our view of the world, like a short buffer, a short descent to the bottom, so that the top may look a little different. Sometimes being thrust into a different space will generate new appreciations and methods for life that were never there before. So it's no secret as to why the very next puzzle after our short sea dive requires us to shift our perspectives so that we might get the whole view, the whole picture, which leads us down a new avenue in life. Non-Euclidean games are some of the absolute best games for generating metaphors, because they work so well with humanity's negative space, the kind of unspoken underbelly of our everyday lives, where we think a lot of shit we would never say or do, and the things we are unconsciously a part of. In this case, it's showing us the things we worship, the things we rely too much on, and how that interacts with the world and our own views on life. This is demonstrated through the use of obvious and subtle polarity, and by tethering necessary themes into mostly forgettable and mundane objects. For an absolutely free game, this is packed with incredible style, and infused with the influences of all the best and most substantive puzzle games. I repeat this sentiment frequently in my videos, but it's because I believe in it. I'm overjoyed at the fact that there are developers who devote this kind of time and passion into the art without any financial tether. Some of them, without realizing it, are engaging in an open bond with those who play it, through their creativity. Thank you SampleText for making this game, and for putting so much in such a short experience. 9.5 out of 10.